What's better, off, right?
Admit.
Yeah, off.
Off is better.
So you get that sick leg.
Yo, what's up, Hossam?
Yo, man, how's it going?
Oh, yo, also like the thing is like not like steiging the volume or something. Maybe take this
You
off.
want headphones?
Do you guys hear me? Oh yeah, headphones, yo. You guys hear me?
I can hear.
What's up, Dad? Hossam or Sam? Sam, yo, his name is Sam Shmuel. That's dope. So we're just getting the sound working.
Okay, I think you're good.
We're good. And headphones. You hear them? Yo, what's up, guys?
What up? What up?
What up? What up?
Who's on the call?
All right, so on the call right now is me, you, and my dad. And
Hey.
and we're about to have another person come in.
Hey, Dad.
How are you?
Dad, what's up?
How's Canada?
Pretty
Yo,
good.
what's up? Ayala Finkelstein in the house.
Hi.
Hey, what's going
Hi.
on? So so some other people might come in. We're just chilling. We have an overview of the sugya of the topic that we're learning, just so we're all on the same page. I'm gonna send the source sheet. The shir today is called 2hi42messiaz vytr. I'm gonna send it in Hebrew and in English. Last week at this time I gave a shir called 2hi42messiaz, and I got high right before. I'm trying to see, figure out what the steez is. But so this time I got high, but like a few hours ago. So now I'm still chilling. And last year was also good, even though I was high. We started off last time that me and Hossam learned was like 2 weeks ago, right? This is the first time for my dad and for Ayala. Harry said he's gonna come, and also there might be another guy coming, So I'm just like texting them, but like whatever, they'll be fine. If you see on the source sheet, I began the source sheet with this thing. This guy, the Ben Aryeh. We spoke about.
Where did you send the source sheet?
On the Safaria chat. On the Safaria chat, there is a link. You guys see the link?
Yeah, I see.
All right. I sent it with both languages because we have some people who don't speak Hebrew here.
Just me,
Just
I
you.
guess. The odd one out.
So for the technologically unsavvy, is this an email or is this a WhatsApp?
So right now we're doing something called Zoom.
I get.
And on Zoom, on the bottom, there's a thing that says chat. If you click on that, you'll see that I sent a link.
Is there a word when you mansplain to your father?
It's called explaining.
Father explaining.
Okay, I'll figure it out.
All right. Fine. So we started off, we saw this Ben Aryeh. We saw that we should start off the second source. We saw that Rambam. We saw in the last, we saw this machlokas in the Rambam. It's a machlokas in the Gemara. It's an argument in the Gemara in Sanhedrin. And the Gemara brings two opinions of when Mashiach is going to come and how it's going to look. We discussed this idea that Rabbi Yochanan says that all of the Nevuah, all of the Nevi'im are talking about in the days of Messiah, and the world to come, Olam Haba, that's like way too crazy. That they say that the eye hasn't even seen that. But then there's the opinion of Shmuel. And Shmuel said that Ein ben Yemos HaMashiach, Ein ben Zman Hazeh, Yemos HaMashiach, ela shibud malchus bilvad. There's no difference between nowadays and the days of Messiah, except for shibud malchus bilvad, the subjugation of the nations. And so we spoke about how Maimonides understood the subjugation of the nations, and we spoke about how maybe another level to understand that. We spoke about that in 2 weeks ago, Hossam, and I think we talked about that maybe a little bit yesterday.
Yeah.
You remember what the answer is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So so we spoke about that there's this argument, right? Remember the so yeah, we spoke about that a little bit yesterday. We were talking about this. So very often in the Gemara there will be a machlokas, and then the Rambam Maimonides, who wrote Mishnah Torah, amongst other things, he wrote philosophical books, but he also wrote this. This is like his magnum opus. This is his halachic book, and so he wrote this book, and he would decide halacha according what the law is, right? Like halacha is Sharia law. So he would decide what the law is, and he would quote one of the opinions. But in this case, everyone's baffled, because how did he quote both of these opinions? If there's an argument in the Gemara, how could he bring two opinions? Right? So that was what we saw in the last share. We also talked a little bit about the Ramban and his opinion about how the days of Messiah are going to look. We spoke about how and the world to come, how the Ramban says that the world to come, we're going to be in our bodies, and the Rambam says no, it's going to be like a spiritual world. Fine, and that will come back up in the classes, in the things, in the shiurim, in the conversation. But today, I wanted to discuss this idea that we saw on the first day, that this Ben Aryeh, who we never even heard of, how he wrote this. He quoted the Gra in Safra Ditzniasa. Dad, you know what Safra Ditzniasa says?
It sounds familiar. It's something hidden.
It's a hidden book. That would be the translation in Aramaic. Do either of you other guys, so I think we've spoken about it before, do you guys remember like what Safra is?
Is it the equivalent of an apocryphal?
No. Safra Ditzniasa was so Safra Ditzniasa is the most hidden book of the Zohar.
Oh,
remember?
okay.
Remember we spoke about that? So the Gra, who lived like 200 years ago, one of my claim to fame is that I learned by Rav Ilsen, and Rav Ilsen once told us a story in the name of his Rebbe. That his Rebbe's father, when he was a young boy, he met an old man. That when he was a young merchant, he met an old man who said that when he was a young boy, he saw the game. He saw the Gra. That was the story that he told us in class. He said, Father once told me, and he was talking as his Rebbe. So I have like 3 generations away from someone who saw the Gra. The Gra is like one of the most amazing people. And he wrote one of those amazing rabbis that lived in the last while. The Gra, we actually, it's a perfect time for Rabbi Harry to join us, because Rabbi Harry.
Sorry about that. I'm going to be on my video in about a minute or two, but I'm steiging with you.
You're steiging with us because we were just talking about the Gra in Safra Ditzniasa, and you came in. I'm like, oh, yo. Right? Don't you have like a story with the Gra?
I'm a descendant. My family's in the book of the published families that come from him.
Wow. So we're going to be learning this esoteric explanation of the Gra eventually on the Zohar. but we have to get there first. I want to first learn a little bit about the sugya of this idea of the two messiahs, because he quoted the Gra to answer up for the contradiction in the Rambam. He quoted the Gra saying that there are two messiahs, and that's why the Rambam, it's not a contradiction, because one guy, Rabbi Yochanan, ostensibly is talking about the days of Mashiach ben David, and Shmuel is talking about the days of Mashiach ben Yosef. For Shmuel, Mashiach ben Yosef, it's going to be a regular thing. The only difference is that there's not going to be a subjugation of the nations. And the Rambam said subjugation of nations, that the non-Jews are not going to subjugate the Jews. And yeah, that's going to be part of it, but that's not what I believe the ultimate meaning of this prophecy or this exegesis is. I believe that there's not going to be Shibud Malchios. What that means is that there's not going to be any government that subjugates its people. We know now, and we see it's very strongly, that the government's keeping us inside in our houses. But when you think about it, even if they let us go outside, there's still a bunch of things that they don't allow us to do. They don't allow us to we don't have free reign. We're not free. We don't have free reign on our psyche, and we're not allowed to really figure out for ourselves, because there's so many societal things that are holding us back. And one of them is, I think, legalization, not just of marijuana, but all drugs. But I do believe that the legalization of marijuana is a sign of the redemption, that the Shibud Malchios it's softening. We're slowly, the government is starting to trust us, that that people are really just trying to be good and happy people and trying to figure out their path,
Yeah, I mean, just to chime in for a second, if you look at in the early 1900s, there was a U.S. law: all farmers were required to grow hemp, because the government used the hemp for the army soldiers, etc. And then later on, you start to see the biggest lobbyists against the cannabis industry are the cotton industry, alcohol industry, tobacco industry, and obviously cotton because of hemp, alcohol, tobacco.
right?
So you
And
start to see
big
that
pharma, I thought.
illegal in the first place. The war on drugs was some businessman sitting with the bottom number in his conference room with a bunch of guys and say, "Hey, we could buy America, we could buy policy." That's where humans stop becoming free. When one human could buy the right to control another human's reality for the sake of his bottom line financial investments. That's where it got a little crazy.
Right. Nice. So we should be zocha that this should happen. We don't know. The Rambam, the second source that I brought, says the Rambam says, first of all, he paskins again like Shmuel. He says right at the beginning, Amru Chacham, second source, Ein bein ha'olam hazeh li'mos Mashiach ela shibud malchios bilvad. So there's no difference between it nowadays and the days of Messiah, except for this subjugation of the nations. And then he says that about Mashiach, when he talks about Mashiach, he talks about B'techilas Yemos HaMashiach. He says, Yerem Pshutan Shel Divrei HaNeviim, Sheb'techilas Yemos HaMashiach. At the beginning of the days of Messiah, there will be Mechemes Gog uMagog. There will be this war. And I started looking at what is exactly this war? That's a topic that I would we're going to hopefully learn one of these weeks, because what is this Mechemes Gog uMagog? At the beginning of the Yemos HaMashiach, there's going to be this war. And before this, Yemos HaMashiach is going to come Eliyahu Hanavi, right? Anochi Sholech Lachem as Eliyahu Hanavi, right? And what's he going to come? He's not coming to do anything spiritual or supernatural. Ella Lasim Shalom Ba'olam, to put peace into the world, right? Because it says V'heshiv Le'vavos Avadim, okay? And there are those that say, he's saying that there are some people that say that before Mashiach Eliyahu comes. So first of all, he's talking about the beginning of the days of Messiah. There will be this, right? He talks about there's going to be HaMashiach. Never in the Rambam did I see him talk about this idea of two Messiahs, which is a little bit prevalent in the Talmud, and we're going to see that. But he doesn't mention it, so I have a little bit of hesitation accepting the Ben Aryeh's shot, his explanation. What I wanted to say was based on what the Rambam is about to say. It says, Kol elu hadavarim Lo yodea adam echiyu adshiyu. We don't know how it's going to be. We don't know what it's going to be until it happens. We could get ideas about what it is, and that's what we're doing in these shiurim. Is that we're just getting ideas. It says devarim stumim if they're completely hidden from the prophets. Even the wise people, they don't have any like real Kabbalah tradition to know what it's going to be. He says only about what they see in the verses, which is what we're doing. He says therefore there's a machlokas. The Rambam, I don't know any other place that the Rambam says therefore there's a machlokas in these things and brings both opinions, contradictory opinions. I never seen that before. So what I wanted to suggest was that the Rambam is paskening the machlokas, that he's saying that this machlokas over here, he's saying that what is the law? The law is that we don't know, and there's a bunch of different opinions, and he's like, yeah, figure them out, spend some time on them, figure them out.
The use of subjugation, does it refer to actual physical subjugation or just mental?
It's a good question. What do you guys think?
I mean, one could all, like we said before, one could lead to the other,
Right.
Subjugation comes in all forms, but like bullies come in all forms. They'll make fun of you for anything. They don't care. If they see a weakness, they'll go for it.
Right.
But I don't know what they specifically had in mind, if they were specifically talking about something, but I certainly believe subjugation could fall in both realms of mental and spiritual.
Right. Well, I think
it's
that
like, you know what they say with like the story of Purim, it's like, sometimes they go after us spiritually and sometimes they go after us physically. There's been different forms of persecution.
Right. And if a person is subjugating the person and like physically, so that also means that there's something like spiritual going on in the action that he's doing. Maybe he's taking away someone else's freedom, that he's not taking into consideration how another person is chilling. It's both. And so I think that Shibud Malchus is also, this subjugation is also like they're gonna control our minds with pop culture, maybe with advertisement. I think it would be so great if like every place where there's a billboard there was just art instead, and like an artist got to like show a vision about like what it means to be like to live well and to be happy and to be chilling and to be free.
Well, see, but I'm not entirely sure that. To me, Shibud Malchus means that you're under the management, the governance of an entity, and in Yemos Mashiach, you won't be under that entity. You'll be under a biblical, godly entity. I mean,
that's how you learned it. That's how you learned it in school.
No, that's the simple reading of what it says.
That is how like I imagine like they would teach it. That's how like that is what. So the Rambam does. First of all, it doesn't say that. If you're gonna tell me what it says, you have to bring me like the actual words. But I don't think it says that. He does say in another place that Shibud Malchus is going to be like the nations not being Meshaved Israel, and that Jewish people will be, or Israelites will be independent. But I'm saying that there's a deeper explanation to it. I'm saying that there is another way to learn Shibud Malchus, to learn it in a more universal understanding. It's not only talking about what like the Jewish people, what their status is. Talking about all of the nations, everyone in the world is going to be free from that. We know that the redemption is not just a Jewish thing, even according to the Jewish people. Basi Kare, Beis Tefillah L'chol Ha'amim. When it talks about the third temple, it says all the nations are going to come and chill there and party there. So the interpretation that you said is true, but I'm saying another step.
Okay.
Because according to the explanation that Israel is going to be self-governing, and there's not going to be any government that's making us do anything, but we have our own autonomy. So we already have that. And I do think that is a step in the days of Messiah. I do believe that we are in the days of Messiah.
So I would say we don't have that. We still have Shibud Malchus. We're still under the realm of a
Like
political.
Trump,
No, like Netanyahu, like
Netanyahu. Yeah, but
Likud.
Netanyahu is.
No, but what I'm talking about is a government that's like a kingship that's ordained by God as opposed to chosen by man.
Well, kingship also was chosen by man. Like the Jews weren't supposed to have a king, and then they're like, "Oh, give us a king like all the nations." So we're like, "Oh, you want a king like all the nations? Okay, here are the rules." But I don't think a kingship or a monarchy is the ideal government in the Torah.
Or maybe it's a direct relationship with God. So that there's no government. So right, it's even better. So that Shibud Malchus means you're under a government, and whether it's a foreign government or even your own government, versus in Yemot Mashiach will have a direct relationship.
We'll have a direct relationship.
Without an intervening government.
So we're all going to be prophets? I don't know, because the Gemara says, there's no difference except for the Shibud Malchus. It sounds like it's going to be a more human evolution.
When the Jews left Egypt, didn't it say that all the handmaidens saw as much prophecy as like Yechezkel or something, that like all the people of Israel were prophesizing? And so don't we say the first Geula is going to be like the last Geula or something? So it could be there's somewhere to learn out that, maybe we will all be prophets.
Yeah, but that's not according, I don't think that fits according to Shmuel.
Okay.
Like maybe according to Rabbi Yochanan, but according to Shmuel and how the Rambam
if we say Shmuel is talking about a gateway scenario, that the take it down to the Malchus will lead in the natural evolution prophecy, that's a whole other argument.
Right. So I think that's how we said that's how the Ramban learned. There's going to be a natural progression, like through the whole thing. The Rambam learns that the beginning is going to be. He says, maybe there's going to be a war. But either way, the Rambam definitely contradicts himself. The Kesef Mishnah says that, and then the Ben Aryeh brings this idea of two messiahs. So we're going to go into it a little bit. The idea of two messiahs. In the last share that I gave, we went into it. We saw some different people that might have been Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. We talk about Yeravam ben Nevat and Shlomo, King Solomon and King Yeravam. We talked about those. We brought those psukim. I think I took them off for tonight because it was just very verbose. But we saw those psukim. Before I wanted to go into we're going to see three different paradigms tonight, and then we're going to see where does it, how it applies. But before we saw that, I heard in my studies, I saw two verses that that might have been remezes, references to the days, the fact that there's going to be two messiahs. The first one I saw in the Gra, it says how your enemies, O Lord, have flung abuse at your anointed at every step. That's the English translation. I'm on English now because I sent you guys in English. But the Hebrew says Asher charfu oivecha. The English says Asher charfu oivecha, Adonai Asher charfu ikvos mishichecha. It says that what's crack-a-lack, bro? It says that Asher charfu oivecha, they flung abuse, whatever. But it says at the end, ikvos mishichecha. It says two. It says the plural at every step, the steps of your Messiah, and so that's two. And the next, so that's one source that there might be two. The next source was brought to me by Rabbi Harry over here. So he just sat in, so we welcome him. If you want to read the next verse. It's the verse that you told me. It's a pasuk in Ovadia.
Okay, it's in your source sheets because I just
Yeah.
opened my laptop.
All right. So when we get to that,
Let me pull it up. If you don't
pull it
mind.
up. Yeah.
I'll get to it while you continue. Because I'm excited to read that.
All right. So those are two examples of of Messiah, of the fact that there might be two messiahs in the Jewish lore. I don't know.
How did you infer that, though? How did you infer that from these two passages that there are two messiahs?
One says ikvot, so it says it in the plural.
Oh, I found it. I found my source that I brought.
Nice. So you want to read it?
Sure. It says in the book of Avadia, it says, Va'alu Moshim Bahar Tzion, says the redeemers will like come to Mount Zion using plural for redeemers. And it says from there they will judge Asa, and then God's kingdom will be established. Vaytal Hashem Hamlucha. So we see this concept of multiple redeemership happening here.
Does redeemers insinuate messiahs, or can anyone I don't know, are there levels to, are there different categories? Can anyone be a redeemer?
So that's a good question, because we'll see. The classic idea that we've all heard, like growing up in yeshiva or madrasa or Beis Yaakov, the idea is that like Mashiach is going to be a guy, and even the people who heard that there's going to be two messiahs have understood that there are two guys. But we got to see, if we have this idea that there's two messiahs, there's got to be an Indian here, right? There's got to be an Indian.
Can I just answer this question quickly?
Yeah,
because
I'm gonna step
I know
away
you're
for
always source based, so
second.
we're gonna have to stick to sources. But I would want to just say what I heard.
What?
I know everything in your shears always has to be source based. We always got to come to the sources. But I wanted to just answer this question of what I was taught, was just that what I was taught is that there's two messiahs that activate this thing called like the Messianic era, where everyone becomes like part of the Messiah. We're all equally going to be on a Messiah level, but there's going to be two human figures that bring that onto the planet, that are the catalysts to help activate that for everyone.
And what are the two sides? I mean, first of all, where did you hear this?
Well, I heard from a shiur from my rabbi on the Ramchal, Kitvei Ramchal. So
Nice.
I'm not holding like which paragraph of the Ramchal right now,
Right.
but I do know that I'm telling over what I was taught, which is something you're allowed
to do. The Masorah from the Beis Medrash. So we accept the Masorah from the Medrash. We hear it. We're trying to figure out like a sugya though, like we go with the sources, but I hear what you're saying. Okay, so that's in Tanakh. Those two sources, and now we're going to see a Gemara in Sukkah, which talked about it. I brought the sources in this Talmud, right? Basically, it talks about the Savda Haaretz Mishpachos. It talks about a eulogy in Zechariah, and it's talking about, and the Gemara assumes, and like it says, it's talking about La'asid Lavo. It's talking about in the future. So the Gemara asks, "Hi Speda, my avidite." This eulogy. What did we do? Like, why are we doing it? So pligi ba Rabbi Dusa v'Rabbanan. So there's a machlokas, Rabbi Dusa and the rabbis. Chad Amar al Mashiach ben Yosef shenerag, v'chad Amar al Yetzer Hara shenerag. One of them says that they're going to be crying in the end of days because of Mashiach ben Yosef, which dies, and one talks about the Yetzer Hara, which dies. Right? So the Gemara asks, Bishlema, I understand the Manda Amar al Mashiach ben Yosef shenerag. I understand the guy saying that it's Mashiach ben Yosef that is killed. That's why it's written. V'bitu Elai es asher dakru. Right? Fine. So I can understand. Right? I can understand why he would cry if this other Messiah died. But why would he cry if the Yetzer Hara died? Now, why do you guys think he would cry if the Yetzer Hara died? This is a little bit of a bezundera, anderish, like side tangent question. But since it's in the Gemara, what do you think? it would cry if the Yetzer Hara, if the evil inclination is dead, which, by the way, implies, by the way, that in the days of Messiah that they're talking about, that when Mashiach ben Yosef is going to die, that the evil inclination is going to die, which also talks about an elevated consciousness, a state where a person has complete control over his desires and over his lusts, and it's not the other way around. It's not saying that we're going to get rid of it in these days, because as I said, there's no difference. But the difference is, if there's no evil inclination for subjugation, for someone to get power, a person's not going to need that. A person's going to be chilling, even if he's not controlling other people.
Is the evil inclination, does it refer to what Carl Jung calls the shadow? The shadow is basically the shadow of the human psyche.
It could be. I mean,
what is this evil? What is this evil inclination?
What is this evil inclination? So, the evil inclination, I don't know. It's just it's the part of us that it's the part
animalistic. The animalistic
part of it? Animalistic. It's the animalistic part, but we're not saying the Gemara. Ooh, Yetzer Hara. That's a good thing. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, isn't. We don't say that it's like something evil that like should be like when it dies, and that, like maybe this is the reason why like they're gonna cry, because like they're like, oh man, like, but the Gemara is gonna say a different answer. But the evil inclination is not something which we like step on and say like try to get rid of it, and we're like, and we like no one could like have any physical pleasure in this world, and like we're saving all that for the next world. That's not the Jewish way. That's more like a certain sects of Christianity, and that they believe that relationship with this God, you have to be celibate, like take yourself out of this world, But the Jews and the Muslims both believe in having wives in this world.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with? Why is that evil? Why don't? Are you saying
that's exactly it? It's not evil. It's not evil. The part that tries the part that like that's like the physical. I don't believe it's evil, but it could take control. It could like take control of your mind and like make you not be thinking straight, and like making you not do things that like ultimately that for yourself you really want to do, but like it gets you to like miss the point.
Okay, so you're conflating the evil inclination with one's proclivity for the physical. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the evil inclination is only when the proximity for the physical takes control, and gets in like the driver's seat, and person wants money, so he robs. That would say is from the evil inclination. But if a person wants money, so he goes and he like gets a job and like helps people and so that's using the evil inclination. It's using it for good. It's
So why would there be a eulogy for the death of the evil inclination?
Oh, good question. Asks the Gemara. I understand why there would be a eulogy for Mashiach ben Yosef. Elo Lamanda Amar, but for the guy who said Yetzer Hara Nerag, he says that we can do it on the evil inclination that gets killed. Hayespeda, but you have to make a eulogy for this yid. Simcha b'ayim, right? It's like a simcha. Amai bachu. Why were they crying? So Hossam Zaki, you were just mechavein to the question of the Gemara.
I was mechavein. What is mechavein?
I don't know, Dad. What's mechavein?
I guess you intuited.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's intuitive. Good sush show. Intuitive is mechavein, like you like learned this. So yeah, you like figured out like. Well, you asked the same question as the Gemara, which is very geschmack. So the end of the Gemara is a little bit later in the Gemara. It says Tanu Rabbanan. So I didn't bring it here in this case. But what do you guys think? What what do you guys think I want to hear like what you guys think about why the Yetzer Hara would be why we would cry. I think that like I can tell you the chaven is to aim. Oh, Ayelet says the chaven is to aim, to have kavana. She's Israeli, this girl, and so she says the chaven is to aim, which is actually amazing because chet is to miss. Like a sin, they say the sin is like the
Sin,
hakid,
yeah.
right? It's to like miss like the point of what you're trying to do, and so it's back in the great point there
So could I chime in for a sec?
for sure.
Remember what we were taught, like always breaking the rules, like here's what we were taught, but I got to bring the source. But we were taught that one of the reasons that we're going to mourn is because the period of us being independent servers will be over. Like now we have an opportunity to grow and steig and like have an adversary that gets us like higher. Like that game kind of ends and we all plateau out into the spiritual realm. So some people are going to be like, oh, I missed the day when we had like the battle, like with the battlefield of the evil inclination. That was like when we were peaking in human history.
That's geschmack, Harry. That's geschmack. And when you like say to
Though, the kids in India are dying, so I don't want it though.
what?
It's like there's kids in India dying, so it's like, nah, it's not fair for me to battle them, the evil inclination, at the expense of like kids in India dying. So I'd rather, forget the whole thing. Let's bury it.
Right. Let's get rid of. That's.
Yeah.
I hear that. But so you were saying shot in our Gemara. You have a source. Our Gemara says that there's going to be mourning on the Yetzer Hara, and so then you're saying shot in the Gemara. So you have a source. Now when you tell people that, you'd be like, yeah, there's this Gemara in Sukkah, Daf Nun Beis Amud Aleph. Says there's going to be a hesped. And asks, why are we going to cry for the Yetzer Hara? Right? I want to hear other ideas. I gotta pee. So I'm going to go, people like, oh, yo, Sadi's up here. He said, watch it. Yo, what's up, Sadi? So tell your ideas. I don't even know how to like turn off the thing in here. I know there's like mad like cases of like a guy in work and he like goes pees and stuff. So you guys might hear me because I don't know how to.
I think there's a mute button you can press to mute yourself in the bottom left.
But I'll try to pee on the side of the thing, and we'll be back. Momentarily. Say some svaras if you want. Talk amongst yourselves about like why else we would cry, right, Harry? If you want to say something, anyone?
Well, I would say just it's interesting because you can go pee. I'll go in a little because we say that this evil inclination. When did it like come and merge with humanity? So I was taught this was happening at the time of the snake. The snake in the Garden of Eden. This evil was external to us. We were an independent light body, and then somehow it entered us. And the text, the verb and the language that the verse uses to describe it entering us is comparable to a snake bite, like venom. It says nichnas bo zuama, like the impurity entered us. And so the rabbis say, just like a venom bites you and puts its fangs in you and injects its poison, so too now did this evil inclination inject itself inside of us, which is interesting to note because if you look at the word nachash, which is Hebrew for snake, it's the same numerical value for the word Mashiach. So Messiah, Mashiach, is the same numerical value as Nachash. And so, what's that's a little crazy. Why is that going on? Nachash, the snake, is the evil thing. Mashiach is this very high, lofty thing. And so we were taught, let's say you're going to Colorado or something and a venomous snake bites you. So how do they treat this venom bite? What do we do to treat a venom bite for a human? We give them antibody or whatever it is, but that's made from the venom of the snake itself. So like when a snake bites me and injects its venom, they will use the venom itself to also heal me. So that's maybe why I say the Mashiach could be the antidote for the snake and be called like the venom, from the venom itself.
But are they both symbolism of, do they both symbolize knowledge? Because in Christianity and Islam, the evil inclination is both the knowledge of good and evil, right? The knowledge in and of itself lends to the idea of having an evil inclination. Basically consciousness, human consciousness.
Yeah, it sounds like we're getting a choice now. Before we didn't have a choice. Like probably pre-sin of Adam, like no one would ever think to themselves to kill or hurt another person. That thought wouldn't have even come into their brain into the first place. And so now all of a sudden there's an option to say kill, hurt, or steal. that option was what had entered us. Like now we can make that choice. Before,
So with the death of the evil inclination, do we relinquish the choice? Will we no longer have a choice?
that's why I think we're mourning. That's the mourning, because we're going to lose the choice to do certain things, because we're going to act in such an elevated way of consciousness that it will be no question that it's like when Shabbat comes in the future, maybe all humans will feel that there's now a gate open up in the heavens and there's light pouring down. Why would we not sit and receive it and rest for 24 hours? It'll be just like a common knowledge situation. That's because I think it says the verse of the prophets that the knowledge of God will fill the land like the water covers
the
the sea.
Rambam ends Mishnah Torah with that. And so, so the Rav Aaron says that there's always going to be a world to come. Like we have the Yemos HaMashiach, and the Yemos HaMashiach, we're going to be getting to that level. And so there's going to be a level. It implies here that there's going to be a supernatural thing, right? That God is going to kill the but I don't know. The Gemara says, the Gemara talks about that this guy, like, it says the tzaddikim are going to cry, the righteous ones are going to cry, and the Rishayim are going to cry. The tzaddikim are going to see like a mountain, and the Rishayim, the people who like the righteous people are going to cry. They're going to see it as a mountain, and the not righteous people, or the Rishayim, or the evil ones, or the ones who do evil. And I don't believe in a characterization of anyone as evil. Anyone. I think that just like some people have, like, you know, they've taken their proclivity so far, but I don't believe that anyone is inherently evil. But people who have, they will see it like, it calls them the evil people, will see it as a strand. And so an explanation of that Gemara that I heard is that the strand, the people who have done the forbidden things, they've seen it, they've done it, they already had the experience. So for them, it's gonna be like, yo, like, it was so easy. It's like they saw that it wasn't all that like their mind anticipated. In the end of the day, it was like, yeah, right, the end of the day. But the guy who never did it, so he sees it as a mountain. You know, he still sees like, wow, like, look how like great my appetite for this pig is. I know that's an example that we could use and we could all relate.
But doesn't it make you suspicious of the days of the Messiah if good people are mourning the death of an evil inclination? I mean, it makes me a little bit suspicious. Like, what, a eulogy for the death of the evil inclination? That's crazy. As in like, there has to be some good aspects of it for there to even, also, be a recognition.
You know what's funny? Sorry to chime in again. Is, you know, when the Jews left Egypt, a lot of Egyptians died. A lot of the soldiers died. They got washed up in the sea when the sea split. So when we have our Passover Seder and retell the story, we actually like take some drops of wine out of our cup in memory of the Egyptians that killed us. So you'd ask me the same question, like, why are the people of Israel mourning over the Egyptians? Like, these guys made their life miserable and horrible. It's like us mourning over Nazis, so to say. Like, why are we mourning over Egyptians? And the question, you know, maybe Israel's just such a compassionate nation that even our enemies' death, we show respect, you know, because we do it with the story of Egypt. Maybe in the future with the Yitzhahar, we're just going to be respectful and be like, you know what, let's have last closing words for that guy. He did well. He tried hard. Pour a little bottle out for him.
Yeah, and he was keeping the world going, you know?
All right, yeah. That makes sense, kind of. Like, a death
We're
of
just
an aspect.
Such a high place. We're just gonna like, you know, feel bad for that guy.
Yeah, but we see that like the Mashiach ben Yosef time is an elevation of consciousness, and I really do believe that that's like what's going on right now. You know, that's this process of this elevation of consciousness, and I think that legalization is a good barometer, you know, to see where we're at. And I don't know, I just think that's cool. I mean, listen, like the Shibud Malchus, the more the government, the more people start growing and understanding like what's really important to them and just being happy and focusing on eudaimonia, on what Aristotle calls the ultimate in human pursuit, and what the Torah calls tov levav, which is a prerequisite for the fulfillment of any divine service, when a person starts internalizing what we call the super show, and a person just like is good, he's good, he doesn't need anything else. It doesn't matter what's happening. He's chilling. No matter what happens, he's chilling. He has this place in his head. A person called like everyone views it differently. You know, for me it's a safari, but everyone builds their intellectual worlds differently. And I have a bouncer in front of mine, and there are only so many thoughts, like certain thoughts that are allowed in. Any thought which has a should or a would or a could.
Should have, could have, would have.
What's up?
Should have, like in the past.
Yeah, like, oh, this should have, right?
Like, I could say I should drink a certain amount of water a day, but once the day's passed, I shouldn't say, oh, I should have drank. And they're like, no, the day's over. Don't live in regret land. Like, move forward, free yourself from thinking about what just happened, and make a good plan for what you should do tomorrow based on what you've learned today from your lessons. But once you start living in regret land, lo aleinu,
and so like those thoughts I don't let in. And on the positive side, you know, they judge everyone favorably, they say. To judge people favorably, I think that to judge a person in a situation favorably is immensely beneficial. When a person trains himself to always think positively about every situation, about every person, he trains himself to tell himself the narrative of the life that he's living. While he's living it, he will interpret it positively. And this is a cognitive reboot for humanity. You know, it's just the person starts chilling. And I think that in Corona, when everyone's stuck inside and they realize, like, hey, like I can still chill. It doesn't matter if I'm going out or not. I can still chill. It's still, right? And everyone has to know their own, right? This is a mission of our lives, is to figure out, like, how we can be chilling. But we can see that we can be chilling even, like, we don't have anything. We realize that it's not about what's going on. It's about what's going on inside. It's not about what's going on outside.
Oscar Wilde has an interesting passage in The Picture of Dorian Gray. He says the key to transcend, I'm paraphrasing, the key to transcendence of suffering is when a human being becomes both the spectator and actor of his own life.
Say it again. Sorry.
The key to transcending suffering is when a person becomes both the spectator and the actor of his own life.
That means self-awareness. I agree. The person rises to levels of self-awareness, you know, and he's like, I don't know. For me, like, when I go through tough stuff, just realizing that, like, yo, this is like the fuel that allows us to grow. And everyone's going to be getting a lot of fuel from these Corona days. And I've been saying this since day one, that this is an opportunity. And we should be zoche. We should, you know, the Gemara actually, I'm going to bring a source that I saw right before class. I didn't have time to, like, put it up. It's all the way on the bottom of the source sheets. I don't even know if I was able to get it in. They talk about, like, the days of Messiah. There's a Gemara that says, it's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Tzadi Ches Amud Beis, on the very bottom. I don't know if it's on the sheets, but it says that these rabbis are talking about the days of Messiah. It says, Amar Ula. Ula says, Yaisi, he should come, v'lo achimena, and I shouldn't see him. V'chein Amar Rabba, Yaisi, v'lo achimena, he should come, but I don't want to see him. I sent it in the thing. And then Rav Yosef said, Yaisi, let him come, ve'ezki, and I should be zoche, I should merit, ve'esiv betula de kufisa de chamre. And I should be zoche to sit in the shade of the shit of the chamor, of the chamor, no, the donkey. I should sit in his donkey, meaning, like, I want to be in that days. I want to be in that days, right? Everyone's like, yo, I should, like, Messiah should come, but I don't want to see him. And the next guy's like, yo, Messiah should come, but I don't want to see it. Rav Yosef, who was blind. He was living in Bavel, second generation Amora. He said, "Yeah, come, and I should be zocheh to sit in the shade of his shit." And it's just too good of alliteration to pass up and say poop. You know? You guys know what alliteration is? I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Right? Sit in the shade of the shit. It's like as a rapper. Anywho, we have one guy in the Gemara in the Amoraim say, and this is the next generation after Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan that were in Bavel and Eretz Yisrael. Now you have three guys who were in Bavel, and they're talking about it. And two guys are like, "Yo, I don't want to even be there in those days. It's gonna be like so like bad. Is it gonna be bad? They're gonna be crying. Are there gonna be wars? We talk about this war of Gog and Magog. What is this war of Gog and Magog? There's this war. They're psukim about it. It's a very like esoteric war that the Rambam says might come at the beginning of the days of Messiah. Maybe we already had it.
Physical war or subversion?
I don't know if it says there's going to be a war, but we have to figure out what it is. I don't know what it is. Rabbi Yosef says, "Yo, let me just be in it. You know, I want to be in it." The reason they don't want to be in it is because they think it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard, right? Rashi over here says, "Kilaymar mizyare ani mipnei gadol atzaros." I'm afraid of all the bad stuff which is going to happen. Shahaya lipneichen, that was before this. Umutav she'ani lo eyeh be'osam hayom. I'd rather not be in those days. You know? And some people were like, "Yo, like Rabbi Yosef, who's blind, says, I do want to be in those days." But see, it's very interesting because we see that the days are the days are like causing like a cognitive elevation. The days of Messiah, at least the days of Messiah, Mashiach ben Yosef, is not going to be anything. There's not going to be anything supernatural about them. They're going to be Olam Kimin Hago Noheg. The world is tradition. There's going to be rain. There's going to be this. There's going to be that. But there's going to be There's not going to be Shibud Malchios, which we wanted to understand as an elevation of consciousness. It's not just a happenstance thing, like, oh wow, the Jews are free now from like any subjugation of any other nations, which is maybe what they were able to like conceive of, like when you're living in exile, and that's like the only thing in their mind. Okay, that's what they were able to conceive of, like, oh, that's what they want. But now that we're like Shaiker, like, yo, there's more. There's always going to be an Olam Haba. There's always going to be a world to come. And so, if we're understanding this as an elevation of consciousness, which we saw at the beginning of Geula with Vehotsesi, first there was he took us out of the Vehotsesi V'Hitzalti. He took us out, and then he saved us, right? And then he took us, and then he brought us to the four, right? He redeemed us. Then he took us, and he brought us the five lashonot, the five phrases of Geula. The first one, Vehotsesi eschem mitachas siflus Mitzrayim, I took you out of the suffering of Egypt. And then the second one, the Hitzalti eschem me'avodazam, and I took you out of the slavery. And so we said we see this first step is a step in cognitive. It's a step in an elevation of the soul. Nefesh, ruach, neshama, chai, yechida. The spheros we go top down. In the spheros we go kezer, chachma, bina, chesed, gevurah, tiferes, netzach, hod, yesod, malchus. And we go top down. But when we're talking about the soul, we go bottom up. We say nefesh, and then above nefesh we have ruach, and then above ruach we have neshama, and then above neshama we have chaya, and then above chaya we have yechida. We go bottom up because the whole spheros thing is how God, right? The Zohar is called, which is the book that talks about the book of emanation. The book of it's emanated from.
You're
God.
referring to the tree of life, right?
Referring to the tree of life, exactly. Those sphirot, right, which we've spoken about. They're the emanation of God. They're how God emanated Himself into this world and made the world, made something, made physicality where there was just God, and so they talk about in Kabbalah how He took Himself out. He restricted Himself, that He who put himself back in and emanated himself, and then everything in our world is, in a Neoplatonic sense, everything in our world is a shadow of the real, what's going on in the spiritual worlds, right? And that's
So why do you
what,
say it's top down? Why do you say it's top down?
it's talking about an emanation of God when it's talking about the Sphirot. But there's another, they talk about the soul. And when they talk about the soul, they talk from the bottom up. And I believe the reason they talk about from the bottom up is because it's up to us to get to higher levels. And free will is made more attainable. The higher a person's holding in self-awareness, the more he could be in control of his yetzer hara, of his evil inclination.
Yeah, the way I understood the tree of life is just, it's like a recipe for basically a bottom up to things to master within, again, from a humanistic philosophy point of view, things to master within the psyche to manifest the overall goal, which is the crown, whatever that, the kautar,
the corona.
Is that wrong?
Well, you were saying, you were saying the way that you understood the tree of life in a humanistic philosophical sense.
Yeah.
So the tree of life could be applied in many different ways. You know, a person could talk about the Sphirot and talk about them in many different ways. And so I don't know, exactly how you're applying them. However, the tree of life goes when we count them from the top down.
Okay.
Always.
Okay.
And the soul, the levels of the soul, nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechida, always bottom up. And so I'm thinking because this is like our avoda, that's like our work to we can get to higher levels. That's what steiging here is all about. You know, a person can elevate. And the way he does it, right, you're saying, I don't even want to be there for the days of Messiah. But when this elevation of consciousness happens, why don't you want to be there? Because they know the secret for the elevation of consciousness is going through tough times, you know? And that's the secret of great pride. The secret of the reason that I was saying I'm happy that I went crazy a few times and it's good that it happened. And the reason that it's good that it happened, that I had difficult times and I went through some tough times. So the reason that it's good that it happens is because that's what allowed me to have this, get to where I'm holding right now. And everyone's going, so it goes, Boba Midah, and according to how much you go through the tough times, right? But a person has this elevation of consciousness, I think, for my personal experience, because the thoughts are so difficult that you have to confront them, and when you confront the thought, so then you find these jewels and stuff. And now the whole world is going through tough times. The whole world, right? The whole world is thinking about death, thinking about what, and so this is the time for the elevation of consciousness. And so that's super cool. We saw three. We're just gonna mention them by name. We saw three examples throughout history of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. These dichotomy coming through. This Rav Kook says, and he quotes this pasuk in Zechariah that we saw that Hesped is talking about Mashiach. So if we go back to the source sheet, we can see that Gemara the end of that Gemara, they talk about that in this day the Hesped will be, the eulogy will be Kimispad Hadad Rimon Bebikat Megidon. You see those psukim?
Yep.
So in the Gemara in Sukkah, it says it's going to be like that. right? V'savda haaretz. The second Gemara Megillah. It says, what is the pasuk like that when Yonasan ben Uziel, when he translated it, the whole world shook, and he says, "Who told my secrets?" He's like, "Yo, I was just doing it for you. I was just doing it so that there wouldn't be an argument in Am Yisrael." And the way that he explained these psukim is Gemara Megillah. We're not in the Gemara Sukkah anymore. We're in the Gemara Megillah. So we say, oh, wait a second. Why did the world shake when Yonasan ben Uziel told us the translation? He translated it from Hebrew to Aramaic. Why did it shake when he did the translation on the prophets and not on the translation of the Torah when Onkelos did it? So they say, because the prophets, there's some things that were hidden. And they quote this verse. On that day, the eulogy, the mourning will be great in Jerusalem, like the eulogy of Hadad Rimon, Vigat Megidon, of this guy Hadad Rimon in the valley of Megidon. No one knows what it's talking about. Comes Targum Yonas and it says it's talking about the hesped of Achav, Ahab, and Yoshiyahu, Josiah. And so like the Cook asks, like, what is going on with this Achav Yoshiyahu thing? And Rav Cook says that this Achav is an example of Mashiach ben Yosef, and Yoshiyahu is an example of Mashiach ben David. Achav came from he was the son of Rachel, and Yoshiyahu was the son of Rebecca. Oh, sorry, not Rebecca, Leah of Judah, right? This is Mashiach ben David, the son of David. So that's one example. Another example we saw was Jerubbaal and Solomon. And the third example that we talked about was Rabbi Akiva and Bar Kochba. Right? I wanted to focus on that middle one. I brought some psukim. We don't need to see that. I just brought the psukim kind of like showing how like what happened with the death of Achav. And it's very sad that he died. He told him to get dressed. vytr Yisrael. He came in. They're like, no, we only want Achav. And so so some guy shot him. Fine. I was proving who this guy was. It was Naaman. And then we see at the Divrei Yamim, you see like Chronicles. I bring it down a little bit more. It says that Josiah was killed by Necho Melech Mitzrayim, which is this Pharaoh, right? He said, let us go through. He's like, no. He says, see where I put that green? It's the 22nd verse. Lo save Yoshiyahu panav imenu ki lilachem bo hitchapes. He was, again, he like got dressed up to like bite him. Lo shama divrei Necho mipi Elohim. He's like, yo, I'm not following what this guy just wanted to pass through. He's like, yo, let me pass through. I don't have beef with you guys. I have beef with Assyria, which is like modern day Lebanon and Jordan. He's like, yo, I don't have beef with you from Egypt. He's like, yo, I don't have beef with you guys. And he's like, no, you can't go through. I'll be Elohim. God sent him. And he fought him in Bigat Megiddo and he got killed. The Gemara in Tainus asks why he was punished. Why Josiah was punished for not allowing them to go through. If he did it, well, why didn't he do it? What happened in that story? So the Gemara in Tainus in fast days. You see that? You guys see that Gemara?
Yeah.
So it says he should have listened to Yirmiyahu. But Yirmiyahu said, look, let him go through. Let him go through, yo. He's like, nah, I'm not letting him go through. Why? My darash. What did he say? He says, a sword will not go through in your land. So he's like, wait a second, but it can't be talking about a peaceful sword, a war sword, because already in this blessing it says that there will be no war. Benatati shalom, right? So here, benatati shalom ba'aretz. Eli says, even a cherev shalom, even a peaceful sword, someone who just wants to come through, we're not going to let him. He was incredibly stringent on his understanding of that verse. Where is that verse? So, where was that verse? I brought it over here. Vayikra 26, Leviticus 26. It says, if you do good, like next week's parsha, Dad. Yeah, but Bahar B'chu Gozai. Gishmak. Yeah, what up?
No, we're good.
Emor in Israel, but in America it's Bahar B'chu Gozai. Okay, cool. So, anyways, talking about a blessing, and it says, if you do all this blessing and stuff, then all these good things gonna happen to you. And I put peas in the land, right? It says, and rain in its time, and I put crops, but seriously, and you ate your bread to satiation, and you sat leved up aretz, and I put peace in the land, and you chilled, and no anxiety, and I got rid of all of the wild animals in the land, and a sword will not pass through the land. It's a blessing. But what did Yoshiyahu do? He said, I gotta be machmir. I gotta be stringent. He said, but maybe it's not a blessing. Maybe it's not a blessing. Maybe it's really telling us an isser. Maybe it's telling us like, it's usser. It's forbidden for you to do that. And so he's looking for to make it forbidden. He's like, no, I'm going to be stringent. I'm not going to let you in. And he was killed, and the 10 tribes were dispersed, and we lost the first temple, and it led to the first exile. Very, very second exile, I guess, after Egypt. But this was like a terrible time, and it was because he was so from. I just thought it was interesting to see, and I'm actually not. This is like basically what Rav Kook said. He said Rav Kook explained that Achav and Yoshiyahu, Achav and who is this Mashiach ben Yosef character? Achav and also talk about Jeroboam, that he's more physical, They were both, by the way, wicked kings according to the Torah, because they were not like religious. They did idolatry and stuff. But it says like, why were they zocha? Because why did they merit to be kings? Because they took in parts of Israel, and they were very good on the political and on the respect and the honor of the Jewish people, of the Israelites. That was like what they were about. The physical. It says the kings of David, for example, Yoshiyahu, that we saw he like got rid of all the idols, and he made amazing Passovers, and he brought all the Jews to be like religious again. But Rav Kook says, what does Rav Kook say? He says, he brought the spiritual side, ad ein dome, right? The Kol HaMalachim, Ke'edus HaKosav he says, like Yoshiyahu, there was no one before him, Melech, that sat, that returned to Hashem with his whole heart and his whole soul and his whole everything. It's a verse in Kings 2. Ad Shalom Ratza Klali Yachas Yisrael, he didn't want the Jews to have any relationship with the non-Jews. He was like fine, sitting in his base measure, sitting in his room, and having no relationship with non-Jews at all. He was not thinking about politics, not thinking about geopolitics, not thinking about non-Jews. We don't have anything to do with them, with the physical side of the world. He was saying, I only want the spiritual path of the Jewish people, because Jews are humans are twofold, right? We have the physical and we have the spiritual, and so the physical, what we said was Mashiach meant taking care of business, but he wasn't spiritual at all. But the spiritual paradigm is that, but to taking it too far, is that, they're only focusing on spirituality. They're only focusing on learning Torah. They're not focusing on the physical at all, right? And we're not focusing on the physical at all. Not focusing on politics, not focusing on having a good relationship with the nations or with other people. It's just like sitting in a room and learning Torah. And he made a mistake. He was too frum. Ubazeh vytr al divrei Yirmiyahu hanavi. By this, he disregarded the words of Jeremiah. Shetziva mipi Adonai lahaniach lavor ba'ar Eretz Yisrael eschel Mitzrim. He said the Egyptians could come through. The Navi said, I'm frummer than the Navi. You know some guys that are frummer, that are more religious than the prophet, right? That, definitely back in my days, I would look through my Sfarim looking for where I could be stringent. And we saw that was like where that was the mistake of Yoshia. And so we see nowadays, says Rav Kook, that there are these two paths, right? There's this physical and the spiritual. We see that nowadays in Israel. You have these Haredim who are like sitting and learning, and they hate the non-religious Jews, and they throw things at them on Shabbos, on Saturday. And then you have some non-religious Jews who, because of that, and it started that the non-religious Jews hated the religious Jews because they were so traumatized by the way that they were brought up, and so they left completely, and they grew animosity towards it. I don't have animosity towards religion, Adarabah, Judaism. I love it. I still have a relationship with it, but it's my relationship in a way that's good for me, in a way that works for me, that includes all of humanity and everything in the world. But there are different strains of people, and some people are mixtures, by the way. Some people have this and have that. But this brings me to the idea to answer what Zaki was talking about before, which is that he's saying could it be everyone, or is it one guy? And Harry's there's one guy on the head of a movement. I believe that these are two movements, and that anyone who's coming and bringing and saying I want to be part of this elevation of consciousness, I want to help out. So that person, everyone can be, and it has to make that decision to help themselves, to be Messiah for themselves. And different people find it in different ways. Some people find it primarily through spirituality. Some people find it through physicality. Some people find it through a balance of the two. But everyone who is hustling for elevation of world consciousness, I would say, that person, that person is Messiah for themselves. The person I'm thinking about, because me and Hossam were talking about Kanye. Hossam has a brilliant theory. You want to tell me your theory?
It's not no. It's not a theory. It's just
a brilliant theory.
We're smoking up, and it's just
this is a brilliant theory.
Ramblings of a high mind.
I love the theory. Hossam thinks that Kanye is going to come out as Mashiach. He's like, what happens if Kanye does? Because Kanye is talking about elevating world consciousness, and Kanye is talking about being happy. We saw this thing, the way that Kanye practices Christianity is so geschmack. He sings and he makes these awesome songs. And so Kanye, he said,
background info, just so I don't come out sounding like a weird conspiracy theory. You're smoking weed, and then we were watching the Sunday services that Kanye has every Sunday now. He's basically deconstructing the whole religious experience based on his take. And the theory came out was what if, because he's gaining tractions in the church of Kanye, a lot of people are following him. And the whole idea was people are seeking the religious experience or the elevation of consciousness through a different means, through art. And I was like, what if in 10 years people start believing in Kanye as the Messiah?
And so I said Kanye is Messiah. But we all have the potential. Everyone has the potential to be Messiah. And first, not only that, but everyone has to be Mashiach for themselves, to redeem themselves from what Spinoza called the evil emotions. Everyone's got to be Messiah for themselves. And then Kanye, who's hustling for the world, so he wants to call himself Messiah. He's definitely playing the part, Messiah is a part, and we saw from these sources that Messiah is an elevation of consciousness, and it's a worldwide elevation of consciousness. And so no one else can elevate, right? All that a person can do, all that a therapist can do is help a person think about what's going on with them psychologically. But a therapist can't save a person, and all pills can do is basically treat your brain like a kid and say like, oh, I'm just not even gonna let you like go out play outside. I'm not even gonna let you go free, and just like not let the brain, be whatever. And but ultimately, even on pills, a person still got to do the work, on like antidepressants.
So in Judaism, is Messiah a real person, or is it a set of attributes?
So what we're saying right here is that Messiah is two.
Is it a set of adjectives or characteristics that anyone can attain?
It's two paths. It's two different approaches to life. The approach of the focusing more on the physical, like Achav, and focusing more on the spiritual, like Yoshiyahu. Now, ultimately, it used to be that we had one guy who was both of this. We had one guy that was in charge of all of the children of Israel 3 times in history. Does anyone know who those 3 people were?
Say again.
The 3 people that were that ruled over all of the Israelites.
Shlomo Melech.
Shlomo was one of them. Before Shlomo was.
Saul.
I can't hear you.
Saul.
Moshe.
Oh, that's a Moshe. That's a great thing. I was referring to after we already became went into Israel. But yeah, Moses, definitely. I was thinking of Saul, who's right, and then David, and then Solomon, and then after Solomon, boom, Solomon was it got split, it got taken away from him. I didn't realize that the kingship got taken away from Solomon. I didn't realize that.
In his lifetime?
In his lifetime, bro. In his lifetime, God said to him, yo, I'm like...
I'm going to tear it up into 10 pieces or something.
Yeah, exactly. You're rough him. He's like, I'm going to tear your thing into 10 pieces. In the same way that was ripped away from Shmuel. So it seems that, what Solomon did, Solomon's path, because we're talking a lot about Solomon's path. And he says at the end of the day, as Elohim Yerav as Shemor, but he still lost it. I didn't realize that. That he ended up doing idolatry, and he ended up fucking 1 million girls. Sorry for cursing, I don't know why I did that. He ended up hooking up with 1,000 wives or 700 wives and 300 other hoes.
Well, some people say he wasn't really doing that for pleasure. Just he knew that his seed would bring peace in the world, so he wanted to spread his seed as far and wide.
Harry.
That's why Bob Marley's family says they come from King Solomon. I'm like, oh, well, he was right. Peace would come through his seed.
Yeah, but the thing is about that is that it doesn't only say that Solomon was. It doesn't even say that Solomon was hooking up with these girls and so you can say but it wasn't that he wanted to hook up with them, but he was.
I'm still here.
He was what?
I'm still here.
All right, cool. It wasn't that he wanted to hook up with them. It was that he was doing it just for some super spiritual thing, and that's what people like to say. I'm about to send another few psukim here. It says the king, he loved many women. V'ez Bas Paro, he loved her the most, the Egyptian girl. And then it says Mina Nashim, Mina Goyim Asher Amar Adonai El Bnei Israel Lo Tavo B'chem. Specifically the women that God said, don't take these women. Those were the women that Shlomo took and Shlomo loved. And it says twice that he loved them, for real. So when people try to say Shlomo was just doing it for this elevated thought, it's it's not what it says in the Psukim. It says Davak Shlomo Le'ahava. Talks about love. Right? It seems like these were girls that, and that's what he was doing in Koheles. He was just hooking up with a lot of girls. And Shlomo was an example, by the way. So Shlomo was Shlomo Mashiach ben David, but he wasn't so from Mashiach ben Yosef. He was ben David. We see this Gemara that says, like, said to Yeravim, that God said to Yeravim, he took him by the clothes. He's like, yo, me, you, and Ben Yishai will walk into Gan Eden, walk into the Garden of Eden. He said, who's in front? It's like, yeah, who's in front? It's like Ben Yishai is in front. Shlomo is in front. Because the Mashiach ben David, the spirituality is like the more important. The physicality is important, but according to this Gemara, right, the physicality is in front. Sorry, the spirituality is in front, and the guy who was like in charge of the spirituality is like, no, I can't like even like deal with that if like I'm not going to be in front. He said, which is interesting.
Oh, stuff. I don't know.
What?
Sounds like ego things that we had to like work on throughout the generations in the exiles to like just be mevatel, like, you know, nullify ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, nullify. We got to do it, yo.
Someone told you, like, imagine if someone goes to Eminem and says, Eminem, you know, the Mashiach can come any day, but you have to agree not to be the best rapper in the world. So Eminem's be like, no, I don't want to be a part of that type of Mashiach. Like, Eminem, come on, like we were so close. You just had to like put yourself second place.
He's like, nah. He's like, I'm the GOAT.
So,
I hear it. I hear it. But we
So
see
is
that
the ego the source of the evil inclination?
my friend Moshe says yes. My friend Moshe Gersh says that the ego is indeed like what drives us. He says, because it says that like to shine like the light, who shines like the light, someone who's insulted and doesn't insult back. So he says that the reason that he shines like the light if you don't insult back is because you're like you've shut down the ego, and like the
eulogy is about the death of ego.
Oh, the eulogy is about the death of ego.
Ego death.
That's geschmack. So why would they cry about ego death?
Because it's fun to be evil.
Nah. But they say they both cry. People who did do sins and people who didn't do sins.
You know, it's like I'm vegan right now, but I still really have like pain over not eating wok tov. Like I still think about wok tov and the sauce and the whole experience that I can't have it anymore really is painful for me. But I'm accepted my new way. So maybe in the time of the Mashiach, we'll look back and be like, man, the Yitzhahar was a lot of fun. Like, wow, we really never going to do that. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Right, we're just speculating over here. This is what we're doing. We're saying pshat in the Gemara, but we're based in the Gemara, right? We're saying we can say pshats in the Gemara, but we're based in the Gemara, and it's so geschmack to like actually know what's said and
so
to learn these things. Yeah.
The death of the death of ego is taught. I don't know. Like one can derive a lot of pleasure from one's ego, right? Like the day-to-day pleasures are from the ego, basically.
Depends what your day-to-day pleasure is. I mean, right now we're sitting and we're learning Torah, and like this is not like ego. This is like pleasures of the mind. You know, you're a philosopher, Zaki. Your name is Zaki because you're brilliant, and like you know what pleasure of like spiritual pleasure is like. You know. Yeah. And so like in the future, or in the days of the Messiah, as there's an evolution of consciousness, a person is not going to want, is not going to need, it's not going to be like a distraction for him. He's going to get to a point where like he realizes like, I don't know, like the self-embetterment is like the way to go. And that's like what's like really self-understanding, self-awareness is what's really going to bring him happiness. And it's not the bitches and hoes and drugs. But when he realizes that like it's not all of those things that bring him happiness, so then like okay, like with like he's gonna put the like he's gonna have those things in its place. He's going to understand like what what he wants, you know. And that's the elevation of consciousness that is going to come. Because then why are people going to cry? And why do some people not want to see it? You know?
Well, they also said that, like, you hear like the rabbis say that they saved this generation, like the souls of this generation were saved for this generation because they're so strong. Like the souls saved for this generation were like every soul was terrified to come to this generation, and like
Right.
only the strongest souls were safe to come down. So maybe people didn't want to be there because they're just like, I can't even imagine living in a world of like Yetzirah with the iPhone in front of me. Like having an iPhone today, you have access to all the evil temptations in the possible world hitting your hand secretly. Back then, you'd have to travel to the next village to get a peek at something. It was like so far removed, the Yetzirah, the evil inclination. So the guys probably back then were terrified to be in the same realm as such a darkness that we're in today. And so we're like, you know what? We'll do it. We'll do it.
Because from the darkness, from the hard stuff, and that's why I think people were crying. People were crying because, yeah, there was an elevation of consciousness, but that elevation of consciousness came through tough times. And so everyone was crying. Like that elevation of consciousness, it wasn't like I don't think it's like a snap thing. I think that everyone has to build with it and has to go up the levels of the soul. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. The Yechida, I think, is the understanding that everything is one. That's the ultimate understanding. If a person understands that everything is one, so then boom, there's no Shibud Malchus, right? Why would anyone want to take control over another person? Why would anyone want this other person to be subjugated and to work for him? It's part of him.
Experiencing ego death is no fun. Experiencing ego is absolutely terrifying.
Right.
It's psychological death.
Well, I'll just tell you one other thing that I was taught, that when the Mashiach comes, there's going to be two groups of humans. Certain group of humans who are going to understand kind of what's going on, and they're going to flow with it, and they're going to enter that state of mind. And there's certain people who it's just going to be absolutely terrifying for, because they're going to be so afraid that this transition is happening. I forgot the analogy, but the Gemara uses...
I need to see McCourt.
It was like taking hair out of a glass.
There is a Gemara in Sanhedrin of Sadi Ches that Rav Kahana brings. Because the Gemara says there's two contradictory depictions of how the Messiah is going to look. I can't believe I haven't brought this yet in one of the shiurim. I'm going to write it right down. That the Be'ita Achishena, the pasuk says, "At its time I will hasten it." So Gemara asks, "Be'ita Achishena, and its time I will hasten it." Either it's going to come in its time, or I'm going to hasten it, right?
Or I'm going to speed it up.
It can't happen both. So the Gemara answers, nah. If Yisrael, not the Jews, the Gemara does not say the Jews, talk about all of Am Yisrael. Zachu Yisrael, if the people of Israel are Zoche, so then it will happen in a hurried way. And then he says, like all of those prophecies of grandeur, that's what's going to happen. He says, but if the Jews are not Zoche, if the Jews do not merit, if Yisrael does not merit, then it's going to come in the way of like all of these wars and stuff.
I have a question. Can we define elevation of consciousness, just have a working definition so I can wrap my head around it? Like, is elevation of consciousness transcending the ego? Is that like for the layman? Is it the same as to say one has an elevated consciousness if one transcends his own ego?
I think ego transcending is definitely
a part of it.
I think that's a byproduct of the consciousness.
Yeah, like ego transcend. Is that the only thing that's going to happen? I don't know. We say we don't. This is all speculation. I think an elevation of consciousness. Is eudaimonia. I think an elevation of consciousness is that when a person understands that like what he wants is just to chill, and so all of this running after money, running after food, running after girls, running after honor, running after control.
So goals of the ego. If one transcends the ego, one transcends suffering, one transcends the want of the ego.
I think it's going to be a little deeper than that, because you could still transcend all those things and battle your battles and get over that, but still you're going to be stuck in like your everyday body yourself, but I think there's certain parts of our brain that I wouldn't say are dormant or shut down, but we see certain parts of our brain are designed to secrete certain chemicals. So I believe that, let's say you have this nice BMW, right? And you're leaving it in neutral, and your friends like push you around town, and your car is always in neutral, and you're like, oh, this is so fun. You're like, no, let me tell you, your car actually is first, second, and third gear. Like, oh, I didn't even realize my car does stuff. So you see certain parts of our brain, serotonin receptors, melatonin, dimethyltryptamine secretions. These are all part of the natural flow of our brain. So it looks like there's an engine in our skull that's designed to bring us to states of ecstasy. So I don't imagine that we're going to go to this mystical future world where we skip over actually using parts of the car that we have in front of us. So I reckon part of this elevation will be a scientific process, like the Vilna Gaon says, and you will start to
Vilna Gaon, by the way, is the
secrete
Gra.
the brain. Yeah, the
guy
Gra.
that wrote the Safra. So
He
So
says
Vilna
everything that
Gaon
we're
says
learning also
he's-
has a scientific understanding to it.
Yeah, the Vilna Gaon, they say when he was in the bathroom, he couldn't study Torah, he couldn't study Bible. Like, you don't learn that stuff in the bathroom. So
They say
he
it was
would,
so
read
hard
science.
for him to not think of Torah, so he
would
had
just,
to
read
distract
science
himself.
books. He would just become an expert in medicine and stuff.
So can one have an elevated consciousness but still have an ego? Retain your ego?
Oh, well,
I
mean,
think
of course it's
in my mind it's
Well, you can have an
paradoxical.
experience, but that experience just means you didn't take that experience into the week with you. Like, you had that experience and you left it in the realm of experience. The purpose of mystical experience is to actually stretch it with you into the mundane, to bring that experience with you. So someone could have that experience, then return back to who they were. But we believe, okay, in the time of the Messiah, we're going to have that experience, but learn how to stretch it into the reality. We're going to make that experience whole. That could be because we're going to be continuously secreting differently in our brain, or it could be because we've just all changed.
The whole secreting differently in our brain works beautifully. Works beautifully with the legalization of drugs.
Well, the crazy thing is some of the hardest or most common psychoactive chemicals known to humanity are also endogenously produced in our brain, cannabinoid receptors and DMT, like the dimethyltryptamine. We naturally produce it flowing through our blood. When we dream, we're secreting it in our body. But yet, if someone takes it as a quote-unquote drug and smokes it, it's going to take them to Planet Neverland. But at the same time, that whole experience we can endogenously create without having to bring any external chemicals to trigger it. And the same with cannabis. We could probably feel the effects of cannabis through certain levels of internal meditation and secretion without even having to smoke it.
Right, but I'm saying these psychoactive chemicals will be available for people to experiment with in as much as they want to,
Yeah, I think for sure they'll be free, but it's interesting to note, it says when Adam sinned, the Kabbalistic literature says the light of his brain was sucked into the earth, literally. He uses the word literally, the plants and everything sucked up his lights. So now interesting, you see certain chemicals found in our brain are now found in plants.
Harry, could you find us that?
Yeah, I'm gonna make.
Can you find us these these sources?
Actually, I did already. I created Safari source sheets for that. To be honest.
Oh, amazing, yo, amazing.
I did. I'll pull some of that stuff.
Dad, how you chilling?
I'm chilling so much I'm freezing.
My dad's over there in America, the epicenter of Corona in New York.
Are you guys safe?
Thank God we are.
Thank God. Okay.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. We say namaz. Yeah, we say yeah. So they're safe. They're chilling. It's a crazy time, and
we're gonna start lifting restrictions. Tomorrow is the first day.
Boom! It's the beginning. Oh, you guys! I saw Italy. Started also lifting restrictions. Israel has been lifting restrictions since we started. Israel, I think, is absolutely crushing this Corona thing. Leah and Hara. Yeah, it's crazy. But this lifting of restrictions, is gonna be big. Hopefully, we'll just keep on lifting restrictions and But what's crazy now? Talk about Shibud Malchios is that they're basically taking off anything conservative off of YouTube.
Yeah,
They took and they say, oh yeah, it's because it's this, it's that, it's inciting, and meanwhile they're not allowing a lot of right voices.
Yeah.
To be heard. You know, so we don't even have freedom of speech in America these days in the world.
Even on Facebook.
Facebook is Zuckerberg. You know, we got
Found the core for my opinion of the natural activation of the brain from the Gemara.
Yo, what's the Makor?
Okay, let's see. It's in Brachos, Yud Zayin.
Yo, I quoted Brachos Yud Zayin. We spoke about that last week. The machlokas of the Rambam and the Ramban of how they understand that tzaddikim are going to be sitting. There's not going to be olam haba. Ein achila, ein shtia. Ella tzaddikim yoshim v'atroseim b'rosham v'yoshim v'nanim miziv hashchina.
Exactly. So the big.
That's the Gemara that you were going to bring.
Well, that's one of them because the crowns on their head. It brings in the whole entire sugya of the section of the Israelites in the wilderness after they left Egypt. It said they had crowns on their heads, and we know that during this period of the Israelites in Egypt, they had left the sin of Adam and Eve. The zuhama, the tumah of Adam and Eve had left them,
right? At
and the sin of the golden calf. So if we can associate crowns on your head with the leaving of the zuhama, and now in the future we go back to the crowns on our head. We see that this is like a connection of.
But we both the Rambam and the Ramban said that the crowns on the head is like a elevation of like the spiritual. It's like a spiritual elevation. Now, how crazy would that be if like someone like figures out how to like flip this switch, like maybe like meditate or flip the switch? We take substances and we can activate these things in our brain, which could lead to such an elevation of consciousness, you know, like that's what it is. Like the Atrosayim B'Rosham, there's not achila, there's not shtia, but like
a theory that says that in the future that our pineal gland is very tied to magnetic forces and poles, etc. And they said in the future something could happen where there could be a magnetic pole shift. Or something slightly could happen, a solar storm from the sun or something that could actually trigger the opening of the pineal gland across the planet, that every human at the same time will boom, just instantly blast into this other realm because their pineal gland was forcefully triggered and secreted from itself.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have control over these things, and the first step is getting rid of the shibud malchus. The shibud malchus was not letting us thrive. They're keeping us on the fringe, you know, and I think that first of all, so we saw already that the weed stores were left open, the alcohol stores were left open. They were considered essential. The reason they were considered essential is because people need these things to chill. We see that the government is taking into consideration a person's chill like never before, and we saw that the Jewish government also halacha is easing up. And like it's understanding that like like halacha is important, but it's not the be all and end all. And if it's making a person miserable, and if it's affecting negatively his mental health, so then jettison that shit and figure out what your relationship with it is. And that's the path of Shlomo. But now we saw that Shlomo had the kingship pulled away from him. I thought that the path of Shlomo was a righteous path, but now we're seeing that. Well, maybe because at the end of his days he was still doing like idolatry, and we saw that like for him it didn't bring him to the sof davar that he was wanting to get to. But the path was still canonized.
Seems like a lot more research going to go into this.
Yeah, well, we know we have a lot more research to go into this stuff. I think next week I wanna talk about, I don't know, maybe like this war of Gog and Magog. I want to start like.
Who are they in Judaism?
We don't know. It's this crazy pasuk. It's this crazy verse. It's like this mythological thing. Now, when I was in high school, I would go to this Kabbalistic shir given by Rav Mordechai Brownstein, my Rebbe, Zag Zunten Stark, and he would give this Kabbalah shir. And I remember I took my dad to one of those shiurim, and at that shir, he was talking about the fight of Gog and Magog, and at the time he mentioned that there's the potential that Gog and Magog is going to be manifested as George Bush and Prince George in England, like it's Gog and Magog. there are these things, and these messiahs also can come through in every generation. This path, there are these two paths that are happening, and there's this war that's supposed to happen, and it could be manifested in different ways, in different times. I don't know how it could be manifested nowadays. Like I'm not someone who could say, oh, that Gogu Mogu, but that was like a board that like maybe like their war on terror had the potential to be that, you know. And it's true.
Because in Islam there is also the idea of Gog and Magog.
No way.
Yeah, they're called Ya'juj, Ma'juj.
Juj and Majuj, dude, that's huge. Juj and Majuj.
Yeah.
And who do they say they are?
They don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know.
So we don't know either. Yo, but that's awesome that we're talking about the same thing. Because the redemption is going to be for all mankind. And so that's like so awesome. Like we're in the base measures, like in the Madras, we're saying like, yo, like we both have this idea of Gogu Magog, you know? Maybe we could make this war be like, you know, like I don't know. We gotta figure out what this war is gonna be about.
And again, are they a set of people or a set of attributes describing anyone who can become like,
I don't
you
know.
know?
I gotta do some very difficult research on this because like this is like I never learned this sugya before. Gogu Magog. I don't know anything about it. All I know is that the Rambam says that at the beginning of the days of Messiah, it's going to happen. And I'm like, yo, like hopefully we already had it. Hopefully it already happened, you know? So we don't need to go through that again. Hopefully this Corona thing will be the last like mass death, you know? And hopefully there's not going to be any more wars. Hopefully people will realize, we see that in Corona, like the war stopped. Like people weren't fighting wars. It's true, like everyone was wanting out for themselves, but all war is currently ceased. Like there's no one at war in the planet. First time in the history of the world. Pretty crazy that there's no war going on right now. Or I don't know about no war, but I remember that the French guy wanted like a petition to stop all the wars. It's still happening, but
I think they simmered down big time, and you have a great point there that we may be at the all-time lowest war point in quite some time.
Ever, perhaps. And
I think America's been at war like 90-something% of its history. That's what I was taught.
America.
But don't you guys feel that there is a war trajectory between the U.S. and China?
Well, now there could be a war trajectory if China purposely
eventually.
released it. I don't know.
Not even purposefully released it. Like as China wants to usurp, you know, the U.S.'s place in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Isn't this a recipe for confrontation eventually?
So I did think about that. Like, is America and whereas a lot of the people on the right have been saying like, yo, China did it on purpose. This is an act of warfare. Trump was like, yo, if it was a mistake, it was a mistake. If they did it on purpose, someone asked like, are there going to be consequences for China? Trump was like, listen, if it was a mistake, it was a mistake. If they did it on purpose, so then we'll deal with that. But I thought that was such an amazing thing to say. I took so much inspiration from that. He said, listen, if it's a mistake, it's a mistake. And it showed so much, understanding by him. Like, listen, if it's a mistake, that was the first time that I was like, whoa, he's like really a leader. Like he's telling people like, how, like, listen, if it was, and that night, one of these kids who like likes to play with their goat was like playing with their goat, and he came into my room and like we were talking, and then the goat peed on my carpet, and so originally I was like so upset. I was like, what? Then I remembered I saw Trump's words like an hour before, and he said, if it was a mistake, it was a mistake. Like a mistake's a mistake. And I was like, yo, like don't worry about it, bro. It's okay. Like that you brought Corbett into my house and she just peed on my carpet. But if it's a mistake, it's a mistake. And I think that this is a huge time right now for the world. If America and China could like work this out and like, yeah, like I think if, let's say, well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that it was a mistake. And if it was a mistake, it was a mistake. and we're just happy that like the Chinese people are doing better, and you know, like I don't think there has to be a war, but now that there's a lot of now that there's friction, so you know that friction it could sometimes blow up into a war, but there is the possibility that friction with like interpersonal friction can actually take the relationship to a new level. You work it out.
But even without the corona, independent of corona, just the natural trajectory of empires. No empire goes down without a fight. As in not going down, as in just like going down from first place. You know what I mean? Without a fight.
Well,
maybe it's different. Maybe it'll
maybe
be
it
different.
could be different. We're in the days of Messiah now, yo. Maybe America and China can like set an example for the whole world of conflict resolution of just like, yo, like we're chilling and like the world just went through a tough time and it doesn't matter like who started it, but we're gonna like we recognize that they want to like chill and they have their path, you know, they gotta right, and like they realize that we want to chill and we have our path, and like and the Muslims have their path, and the Jews have their path, and the Christians have their path, and the Buddhists have their path, and the atheists have their path, their relationship with God, which is a relationship of lack thereof. But everyone is trying to feel good. Everyone's just trying to figure out this world how they can feel good, how they can be chilling. If a person realizes he doesn't need to control other people for that, he doesn't need to enslave, he doesn't need to keep other people down. But he realizes that if he to help nurture the world and raise everyone up, and everyone will be happy. Can you imagine a world where everyone's chilling? Yeah, I can imagine that. That's exactly what the source, what Shmuel says is going to be in the days of Messiah. Shmuel and the Gemara, and the Shmuel also, and the Rambam paskins like that, and the Ramban, and that's what it's going to be. The Rambam says we don't know exactly how it's going to come out, but I believe that we are like in these days, you know, and that's
So you want to
fascinating.
talk?
What?
You want to talk about Gog and Magog next?
Yeah. I do want to talk about Gog and Magog. Let me pull up some verses from Gog and Magog. We can start that. I'm super down. I found some sukkim and some gemaras. I'll send the source sheets to you guys. Copy. I'm sending them in Hebrew. You could press the Aleph A on the side, and then you can see them in English also. The first source is the Gemara Sanhedrin and Daf Tzadi Tez. It says, Lemar be'hamizra v'l'shalom ein kates. There's going to be a lot of, and there's not going to be any end to the, wow. So actually, the way that they say government is like the government, the Misra, is to say the government will be increased and there will be no end to peace. Interesting. Amar Rabbi Tanchum, Darash Bar Kapara, Bitzipori. Bar Kapara lived in the Golan, where I used to live. Bar Kapara said, he would darshan, he said, Mipnei ma kol mem shebe'emtza teva patuach v'zeh satum. Why every time there's an M, a mem, in the Torah, it's like an open one, like the one that you see in this sheet, but this one is hidden. So it says, and so you're like, what do you mean that it's hidden? Look at the Rashi that I brought. When it's written in the Torah, in that verse in the Navi, in Yeshayahu, it's with a closed mem. It's with a mem sofi, which is like the end of the word. You know that sometimes there's like a beginning of a word and there's an end of a word. I know in Arabic some letters are like automatically the end of the word, and some letters aren't. In Judaism, in Hebrew, there are some letters that when they're at the end of the word, they have a different form. And so, but here they use, it doesn't show it in this Gemara, in this case, but in the Torah, when it's written, the first mem is written with a mem sofi, lim marbe. And it says, why is that, the mem sofi is a perfect circle. The mem, the open mem has an opening on the bottom. So it says, Bikesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'asos Chezkiyahu Mashiach. Hashem wanted to make Chezkiyahu Mashiach and Sancherev Gog uMagog. And he wanted to make Sancherev Gog uMagog. Rabbi Harry, who was Sancherev?
That was the Assyrian king.
Yeah, what'd he do?
He exiled the 10 tribes.
Exactly. That was going to be Gog and Magog. God wanted to make Sancherib Gog and Magog. He wanted to make Mashiach Chezkiyahu. Why didn't he? Tune in next time. And we'll learn about Chezkiyahu. We'll go a little bit vytr in the sugya of Gog and Magog. All of you guys now have my makoros for Gog and Magog if you want to look at them. I'm going to be trying to figure it out. That's going to be my my hustle. Just try to figure out what is Milchemes Gog and Magog. What's going on over here? That why didn't God make Chezkiah Mashiach? We saw three people. We saw Rabbi Akiva and Bar Kokhba. We saw Achav and Yoshia, which were different times. It's interesting. We saw Shlomo and we saw Yeravam. And now we see like some idea about Chezkiah and Sancherib. And so next week we're going to start. We found the perfect segue into Milchemes Gog and Magog, and still going vytr on trying to understand this demut, this character in Tanakh named Chezkiah, and which Mashiach did God want to make him, and all that stuff. Find out next time. Super excited.
Also, I think the day Chezkiah Melech died was my birthday, the day I was born. So I want to continue some of that energy.
Yeah, the day that Jesus was born is the day that I was born.
There we go. We got this dual linkage pattern over there.
Oh,
but
definitely.
I got to deal with. I got a tarantula situation, and I got to deal with.
I gotta come over.
Yeah, well, no, I was late for a few minutes. He wasn't letting me into the machzan. He was guarding the door to where I do the thing. So I had to get the box, and I put him in a box, and I hit him. So now I'm gonna go check on him.
You put him in a box, gave him food.
I put him in a box. He looked like he was going to die out of old age. So I put him in a box to keep him
Maybe
safe.
he's gonna molt.
He looked like it, but he was stuck in like this. Like he needed to like get a little boost out of this little thing he was stuck in. So I got him out.
Terrence? Was it Terrence?
He looks. I took a picture. I'm gonna send it to you now.
Send me.
He keeps coming back for more of this.
Yeah, we keep on. Me and Harry.
People just kill it, but I'm like, I can't kill you, bro. But stop coming back.
Yeah,
please.
we made friends with the arachnid community, Harry and I.
Yeah, that was we'll talk about those journeys another time. So I gotta go. I gotta check out my
all right,
train.
go take care of the thing.
And if I turn him into a pet again, I'm gonna bring him to the yeshiva campus.
Yo,
maybe he'll be
to the yeshiva.
Yeah, we'll get a pet tarantula.
You need parents.
Yeah, I don't want the duck to eat him, but maybe like the tarantula could ride on the duck's back and they could be friends.
Yo, that sounds like Geula to me. Tarantulas will ride on ducks.
Shmuel, amazing. I got to run. This was
okay,
super.
Much love,
let me love you. Hopefully next week, same time or another time. Just let me know.
Vytr here. Much love. Piggity beat, everybody.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
guys.
All right.
Thanks for the invite. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
for sure, bro.
Cheers. Fire cheers.
Peace.
Keep it coming.
Bye.